Hello everyone, I'm so happy to see you all again in a new video on my channel. Today, we continue to follow the emotional and resilient love story between CEO Jack and the strong-willed girl, Tutien. This is not just a romantic tale, but a journey of sacrifice, courage, and trust in the face of looming danger. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next episode. In the previous episode, a serious incident occurred. Tutien's brutal enemies are no longer hiding in the shadows. They have boldly broken into Tutien's uncle's house, violently detained his wife, and threatened to harm her unless Tutien is handed over. These men have crossed all limits, willing to do whatever it takes to fulfill the wicked plan orchestrated by Tutien's former mother-in-law, who hired these merciless men. At that moment, Tutien was on her way back home after gathering herbs in the mountains, as she often does. As she neared the house, she witnessed her aunt being held hostage. Without hesitation, Tutien rushed out and revealed herself to distract the attackers. She knew that if she didn't act, her aunt would be in grave danger. So, Tutien bravely chose to become the target, leading them into the forest to divert attention away from her family. Meanwhile, Jack was ambushed and attacked by two of Tutien's enemies. Realizing something was terribly wrong, he quickly pieced it together with the instincts of someone trained overseas. Jack knew this wasn't just a random threat. It was a deliberate assault targeting Tutien. Despite being seriously injured, he pushed himself to get up and ran to Tutien's uncle's house, filled with overwhelming concern. When he arrived, the chaotic scene and the aunt's tearful recount left him breathless. Without wasting a second, Jack plunged into the forest where Tutien had vanished, swallowed by the thick foliage and the whispering wind. He didn't stop to think or feel fear. There was only one thing in his heart. He must find Tutien, no matter what. One thought echoed in her mind. If she were captured, it wouldn't just be her life at stake. Tutien knew that her former mother-in-law could use her as leverage against Jack, and that was something she could never allow. In her mind, Jack's face suddenly appeared. The man who had risked everything to protect her, who stood firm against her mother-in-law without ever backing down. She couldn't let their love be destroyed because of her weakness. Fueled by a fierce love for Jack, Tutien pushed herself to her feet once more, dragging her body forward into the dark forest with both hands. Then, a memory flashed in her mind. On the other side of a large stream in the forest, hidden behind a waterfall, was a small rocky cave she had stumbled upon years ago while foraging. Nestled deep within a cliff and concealed by the cascading water, it was a place almost no one knew about. A flicker of hope ignited in her chest. If she could reach that cave, she might escape the search long enough to hold out until Jack found her. With renewed determination, Tutien limped toward the stream. The sound of rushing water grew louder with every step. Her leg ached, and the blood from her wound continued to stain her pants, but she pressed on. Every step she took in the forest felt like a challenge, but she had no choice. She had to keep moving. The path leading her to the waterfall was rocky and treacherous. Every now and then, the ground would give way, and Tutien would slip, struggling to regain her balance. Her breath came in short gasps, but she refused to stop. As she made her way closer to the waterfall, the cold water began to seep into her shoes, but she didn't care. She knew the water would wash away any traces of blood and possibly confuse the men tracking her. Her escape route was risky, but it was her only hope. She reached the edge of the stream, where the water rushed past in a blur of white foam. The current was strong, but Tutien knew it well. She had crossed the stream many times during her herb-gathering trips. With a deep breath, Tutien waded into the water. cold rushed up her legs, sending a jolt of pain through her already battered body. Every movement felt like an effort, but she forced herself to keep going. She knew she had to get to the waterfall. There, hidden behind the falling water, was the cave that might save her. As she neared the waterfall, the sound of the water crashing down filled her ears. The mist from the fall sprayed across her face, but she didn't let it distract her. She spotted the narrow gap in the rocks that led to the cave. With the last of her strength, Tutien made her way through the water and squeezed herself through the opening in the rock. She was cold, exhausted, and in pain, but she had made it. Inside the cave, the darkness was comforting. It was quiet, and the only sound was the gentle murmur of the stream flowing outside. Tutien collapsed onto the rocky floor, her body giving out completely. She no longer cared about the pain or the blood or the danger outside. She was safe, for now. In the quiet of the cave, Tutien drifted off to sleep. As she closed her eyes, a memory of Jack flashed in her mind. She saw him smiling at her, the way he used to when they walked through the forest together. He had promised to always be by her side. And in that moment, Tutien held onto that promise as she let the darkness take her. Outside, the night had descended upon the forest, and the search for Tutien grew more urgent. The henchmen continued their relentless search, their eyes scanning every inch of the wilderness with growing frustration. Despite having split into multiple groups, combing through every tree, every canopy, and every bush, they still couldn't track down Tutien. The trail of blood had abruptly vanished near the stream, raising suspicion, but leaving them with no clear direction. The leader of the group, a scar-faced man with a vicious scowl, furiously kicked a nearby tree trunk. "Damn it! The blood trail was clearly right here," he roared, his voice thick with anger. His rage wasn't just from failure. It stemmed from fear. He knew very well that if they didn't find Tutien, the consequences wouldn't stop at just a few slaps from Tutien's former mother-in-law. She was the one who had orchestrated all this, and if they failed, the consequences would be far worse. The scar-faced man pulled out his phone and dialed Tutien's former mother-in-law, the one who had hired them, her voice cold and calculating as ever. The phone rang twice before the voice of Tutien's former mother-in-law cut through the line. "Well, have you found her yet?" The scar-faced man swallowed hard, his voice trembling. "Not yet, madam." There was a pause on the other end of the line. The silence was heavy enough to suffocate, and then Tutien's former mother-in-law's voice returned, low and dangerous. "A girl, just one girl, weak and injured, and none of you can catch her? Useless." Her voice dripped with venom. "Listen carefully. I don't care if you have to tear this entire forest apart. I want her alive or dead. Just make sure she's in our hands by tonight. Understood?" "Yes, understood." The scar-faced man stammered, his mind racing. She had always been ruthless, and this moment was no different. She ended the call without waiting for a response, and the scar-faced man could feel his heart pounding in his chest. His failure now felt even more dire. Tutien's former mother-in-law had never been one to tolerate failure. Meanwhile, Jack was racing against time. He had already scoured almost every familiar trail, tracking even the smallest clues, from patches of flattened grass to drops of fresh blood still clinging to leaves. Each trace felt like a dagger stabbing his heart. Tutien had clearly passed this way. She was clearly injured, but why couldn't he find her? Where was she? Worry surged relentlessly in Jack's chest. That blood. If there was too much of it, could it mean she'd been caught? Had they already hurt her? He clenched his fists tightly, refusing to let his mind go to the worst-case scenario. But the truth was undeniable. The night was falling. The last light of day was fading, and Jack remained alone in the forest, without a clear sign, without a single familiar sound. As he stepped through a stretch of pine forest, a strange sound made him freeze. He immediately hid behind a large tree, holding his breath. Through the leaves, he spotted a group of the hired men. They were whispering, clearly confused as well. "You see anything yet?" one of them asked. "No. It's like she vanished. The blood trail ended near the stream. I think that girl knows the terrain. If I don't find her before tonight, Tutien's former mother-in-law is going to skin me alive." Jack caught every word. His heart sank, but also lifted a little. At least she hadn't been captured yet. She was still out there, wounded, yes. But if they were still searching, then she still had a chance. And so did he. But he also understood that if he were discovered now, everything would fall apart. He'd become the prey, and Tutien would be left with no one to rely on. Jack waited patiently until the henchmen moved away, then carefully withdrew in the opposite direction. He needed backup. Alone, he stood no chance against an armed group in the treacherous terrain of the forest. After several failed attempts, he finally found a high enough point to catch a weak signal. He immediately called Tung, his trusted ally, a former undercover cop now assisting in the secret mission against Tutien's former mother-in-law. "Tung, can you hear me? Tutien's in danger. I need you here now. She's injured and hiding somewhere in the forest. They're closing in fast." Tung's voice came through, filled with urgency. "Where are you? Send me your coordinates. I'm on my way. I'll notify the tactical unit as well. If Tutien's former mother-in-law has sent more men, we can't afford any delays." Jack nodded, even though no one could see him. "Hurry. I'll try to stay in contact, but if I lose signal, follow the stream north. I suspect she's hiding near the waterfall, a place she used to visit when foraging for herbs." "Got it. Stay strong. I'm coming." Jack ended the call, his eyes no longer reflecting fear, only determination. Time was running out. But with Tung and the tactical unit mobilizing, he was no longer alone. Immediately after the brief call with Jack, Tung switched into action mode. As a seasoned undercover officer, he fully grasped the severity of the situation. Tutien was not only wounded and alone in the deep forest, but she was now the primary target of a brutal extremist gang. And with their ruthless nature, if the hired men felt cornered, they might kill to silence witnesses or out of pure vengeance. Tutien, unable to defend herself in her current state, would suffer at all costs. Tung would never let that happen. Within less than an hour, he had mobilized a tactical team of elite officers, individuals specially trained for emergency extractions in rugged terrain. Under his command, a precise step-by-step rescue plan was set into motion. He divided the team into 3 groups. Group 1 would follow the stream upstream, tracking blood and possible routes Tutien may have taken. Group 2 would cut through from the eastern ridge, where satellite reports indicated unusual movements over the past 2 hours. Group 3, led personally by Tung, would quietly approach from the north, where Jack was waiting for direct coordination. Every unit moved in total silence, using encrypted comms and stealth formations through the underbrush. Flashlights were strictly forbidden. GPS maps were displayed via infrared lenses. Not a single sound was permitted, because one misstep, one noise, could mean death. Not only for Jack, but for Tutien. Tung moved, while monitoring the live tactical map on his tablet, sweat beating on his brow. What haunted him wasn't the fear of failure. It was the fear of arriving too late. Just one step slower than the enemy, and everything could be lost. He remembered Jack's words about the northern waterfall, the hidden cave behind it. A dangerously remote place, but it could be Tutien's only hope if she had managed to escape that far. Tung had already instructed the units to converge around the area, but he repeated one core rule: do not engage unless attacked. Above all else, protect Tutien's life at all costs. This mission was no longer just an assignment. It was a promise, a vow to protect what mattered most. The forest was now cloaked in darkness, but within that silence, a war in the shadows had begun. So, will Jack be able to follow the final trail in time to find Tutien, the girl he loves, now badly injured and unconscious in a hidden cave deep within the forest? Can he outmaneuver the relentless pursuit of the hired henchman and reach her before it's too late? And what about Tung? With the resolve and leadership of a seasoned special ops commander, will he be able to lead his reinforcement team through the night, lock down the entire area, apprehend the dangerous henchman, and confront the woman who set all of this in motion? The one who would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. The race against time grows ever more urgent. Every second that passes brings them closer to life or death. Love, loyalty, sacrifice, and justice. Everything now hangs in the balance, deep in the heart of darkness. Join me in the next episode, premiering tomorrow, to find out whether Jack and Tung can turn the tide, rescue Tutien in time, and finally bring the villains to justice. And if you've stayed with us this far, don't forget to leave a comment to cheer on Jack and Tutien. A word of encouragement, a simple blessing. Just a few words can give them the strength to push through the peril that lies ahead. See you in the next episode. The story isn't over yet, and the big